It's an easier non-con slate for North Carolina this year, but that means the high-level games they do have are critical, and that starts tomorrow with the Kansas Jayhawks.
This is Tyler Zeller, and you're listening to Locked On Tar Heels.
You are Locked On Tar Heels, your daily podcast on the UNC Tar Heels. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What's up? It's Thursday, November 6th, 2025. Welcome into the Locked On Tar Heels podcast, the only daily North Carolina show out there. I'm your host, Isaac Schade. You've joined me at the place to get your Tar Heels content every single day. It's all part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Thank you for making us your first listener watch to get your Thursday going the right way. Special shout out to all of the everydayers who have joined us, all the members of the Locked On Tar Heels Discord, and our great Locked On Tar Heels insiders as well. You want to join any of those groups? Those links are in the show notes. This episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Right now, new customers can bet just $5, and if that bet hits, you're going to get $300 in bonus bets to use all across the app. Download it right now to get started. Coming up on the show today, Carolina has a couple critical swing games in non-conference play, and here's one of them, Kansas, right out of the gate. We'll talk about that. Yesterday, Coach Rob and I talked about how difficult it's going to be to defend Darryn Peterson tomorrow night. But let's not forget, on the other bookend of their lineup is Flory Bidunga, who's going to cause equally as many problems. And then we're going to wrap the show today talking about how Carolina is a much more complete team this year. But as with any team, there are going to be holes and question marks. So how will Carolina go about covering those up? We'll wrap the show with that conversation. The other thing I got to say, and look, this is silly and absurd and crazy, but I'm looking at myself and I look ridiculous. For those of you that are listening to the show, congratulations, you're none the wiser. But I woke up yesterday morning, I'm getting ready, and my wife, sweet Maggie Schade, said, she calls me Shade when something's funny. She goes, Shade, what is wrong with your eyeball? I was like, I don't know. I look in the mirror and there's this red mark on like the corner of my eyeball. I don't know what it is, like a blood vessel popped or something. The weird thing is I've got a birthmark on my right eye that's always been there, but I don't know. So something popped and it's like getting close to the middle of my eye. What do you call that? The cornea, the iris? I don't know, whatever it is. So I apologize that I look like a creeper, but there we go. All right, let's dive right into it. Carolina, non-con schedule. There are 13 games in non-con play this year because the ACC dropped back to 18 games in conference play. That's great. It gives Carolina a lot more scheduling flexibility, and I love it. And the wise thing that the Tar Heels did is, do you remember the gauntlet they had last year? It was absurd. It was ridiculous, and it was crazy, and they didn't handle it well. So this year, with so many new, easily stepped back a little bit. And where things are going to fall, Carolina, I'm telling you, is going to either be 9-4 or 13-0, or somewhere in between, hopefully closer to that 13-0 and should be as they head into ACC play. And so what you hear me saying is that by my mind, there are 4 what I'm going to call swing games that are going to help determine how you and I feel about the 2025-26 Tar Heels, because the non-con is what sets the tone for the whole year. It's what helps with seeding. It's what helps with the perception of the ACC and this team. And those 4 games are therefore critical. I'm not saying that this Kansas game is a must win. What I am saying is that the totality of these 4 games together are critical and some must wins, right? At worst, you want to be 2-2 in those 4 games. At best, you'd love to go 3-1 or 4-0. But the problem is that the first of those 4 games is game number 2 of the season, right? It's on you before you know it. Here are those 4 games that are going to determine how we feel about Carolina's season. It's Kansas tomorrow night. It's Michigan State on Thanksgiving Day. It's at Kentucky the very next game. So 2 of these 4 are back-to-back in the ACC SEC Challenge, and then Ohio State in the CBS Sports Classic down in Atlanta. The other games are some sort of mixture of games Carolina should win. Here's what I mean by that. There are 7 bye games on the non-con schedule this year. We call them bye games because you literally pay the other team to come and play you. Those games, the Central Arkansas one that Carolina already won, so 6 more. Radford and NC Central, that'll be next week, Tuesday and Friday. Navy, Tuesday, November 18th. Hosting USC Upstate on December 13th. ETSU on December 16th, and then rounding out non-con play with ECU on December 22nd. So those are those 7 bye games that Carolina should blitz their way through. And if they don't, we've got other problems to talk about. So that's 7 of your 13. The other one that is kind of an in-between is the first game of the Fort Myers tip-off, the multi-team event that Carolina is playing during Thanksgiving week. St. Bonaventure is the first of those games. That's Tuesday of Thanksgiving week. They're good. They're better than those bye teams, but it's still a game against a mid-major in the A10 that Carolina should handle by double-digit points. So let's call that 8-0. And then that leaves 5 games against high major opponents. The 4 swing games I already mentioned and Georgetown. The reason I didn't include Georgetown in that is, yes, I know they just went to Rupp and beat Kentucky in an exhibition game, and that's the key. It's an exhibition game. Let's not be concerned about that. Georgetown is getting better, and I'm so glad for them. College basketball is better when Georgetown is better. But still, that Carolina should win by double-digit points. That gets you to 9-0, and leaves Kansas, Michigan State, Kentucky, and Ohio State as the critical swing games. The thing is, for the second game of the season, I wish it wasn't Kansas. I honestly wish it was like Ohio State, because I think they're the worst, not worst, but of those 4 teams, they fall at the bottom of that hierarchy. So you are going to truly, really find something out tomorrow night about Carolina. Again, this game individually is not must win. It's not essential. That's too much pressure to put on this one game, because again, even if you went, say you lose at Kentucky and you lose this Kansas game at home, but you beat Michigan State and Ohio State, you've gone 2-2 in this stretch, and that probably means you're 11-2 in non-con play. You feel great about that. But because Kansas and Kentucky are the other 2 blue bloods, I think we're all going to feel the extra pressure on this game, similarly to how Duke is just one other game, but it's different because it's Duke. That's how we're all going to feel about this Kansas game. So the Tar Heels need to go out ready to go to work. The Smith Center needs to be jumping and popping and rocking, because that fan support is what's really going to bring it, and they need to be ready to go. The other side of winning this Kansas game as the first of those 4 swing games, the good news about that is it takes some of the pressure off of the other 3. For example, if you lose to Kansas, then you're feeling like, crap, we got to win at least 2 of these other 3 against Michigan State, Kentucky, and Ohio State. But if you win it, it's like, awesome. We'd still love to win 2 of the other 3 or all 3 of them, but there's not quite as much pressure because you got to probably quad 1 win in your pocket, depending on how Kansas is this year. Now, here's the other good news. I said, oh man, you wish this wasn't game 2, but guess what? This is also game 2 for Kansas, just like it was last year. So they got to deal with it just like the Tar Heels do. And also just like the Tar Heels, and we'll talk about this more on tomorrow's show. We'll also talk about it more. I'm doing a crossover episode with Locked On Jayhawks host Derek Johnson. So we'll talk about this some there, where both, Kansas has been in the same boat as Carolina the last couple of years, where they've not been Kansas at the same level they usually are. So they're doing a whole new thing. They've got a pretty new look roster as well. Lots of guys coming in. And so both teams are really going to be figuring out the identity. So the advantage then probably falls to Carolina as the team with home court advantage. But you got to go out and you got to be ready to go to work. That's where Seth's leadership comes in. That's where LUKA BOGAVAC's experience as a professional come in. That's where Jarin, Stevenson, and HENRI are like, a lot of these guys are transfers from other high major experiences where they can come and bring all that to a game like this. That's not going to be the moment's not going to be too big for any of them. And even though Caleb Wilson's a freshman, no moment's going to be too big for him. Same is true though of Darren Peterson. Let's be honest about that. So watch out for that. 4 critical swing games in non-con play, and it starts tomorrow night. How will Carolina handle it? That's going to go a long way to determining how we feel about the 25-26 Tar Heels. Now, a big part of winning that basketball game, as we talked about yesterday with Coach Rob on the show, is defending Darren Peterson. And he's going to be a load. But on the other bookend of Kansas' starting lineup is Flory Bidunga, their starting center. And oh my, he's also a load. How is Carolina going to contend with that and their new look front court? We'll talk about it in just a second. Right after I tell you about Supply House. You guys, when the opening whistle blows, toot toot, on a new repair. That was a terrible opening whistle, by the way. Get your crew moving forward with Supply House. Order it today and you can see parts on your doorstep tomorrow. Over 280,000 plumbing, HVAC, and electrical items from the most trusted brands in the business. Their real-time inventory and honest lead times keep you from punting on projects, while their industry-leading customer service always has your blind side covered. Do you need parts fast for a project? Cool, because Supply House has next day delivery. Man, that is a game changer. The Part Finder tools and their 3D schematics can save you hours on a job, especially when every detail matters. And they've got all sorts of perks like priority shipping and dedicated support that are part of their Trade Master program. So go ahead and join that Trade Master program. It's free, by the way, today, and score serious perks like priority shipping, lower prices, and a dedicated support line. Visit supplyhouse.com to sign up for free and use promo code SHCollege5 for 5% off your first order. Again, that's supplyhouse.com. Real people, real service. I hope you had a chance to listen to or watch yesterday's show. As always, a great conversation with Coach Rob. He was on a day early this week because his Milligan team was playing at MTSU, D1 MTSU, on Wednesday morning. It was an all-day affair, so we weren't going to have time to record. So that's why it's just me today. If you want to hear Coach Rob, see Coach Rob, go back and listen to what Davis Wallace texted me on Wednesday morning was, shoot, I already forgot it. Wednesdays with Will. I don't remember what it is. Now I'm losing it in real time. I should have paid attention. What's up Wednesday with Coach Rob? That's it. I like it, Davis. That's good stuff there. Anyway, on the show, Coach Rob and I talked about how on earth you contend with Darren Peterson. He's a load at 6'6". He's bigger than Seth Trimble. He's Stevenson or other front court players, but then he's maybe got some more athleticism, etc., more of a guard. Coach Rob's thought was that you put Seth Trimble on him as the experienced player, the probably best individual defender and most athletic that Carolina has. Even though he gives up a couple inches to Darren Peterson, he's the guy for that assignment. Now, yes, I bring that back up because yesterday we were talking about that in the vacuum, just a vacuum of guarding Darren Peterson without thinking of the rest of the defensive assignments. And that brings us to today where we think about, oh my, you also got to contend with Flory Bidunga. In Kansas's first game, they had two players score 20 or more points. And it was these two guys, Darren Peterson and Flory Bidunga. Nobody else had more than Melvin Council's 10 points. So it's these two guys are the critical factors you gotta deal with. Part of the reason to put Seth Trimble on Darren Peterson is because you need the entirety of the front court to contend with Flory Bidunga, who is 6'10", 235. By comparison, Carolina's front court options are HENRI VEESAAR, who is 7 feet, so he's got a couple inches, but he's 225, so has a couple inches, gives up 10 pounds. Caleb Wilson, who's 6'10", 215, so same height, but gives up 20 pounds. Jarin Stevenson, 6'10", 215, same thing. Zayden High and James Brown, interestingly enough, are the guys that from a weight standpoint have the more sizable capability to contend with Bidunga. High is 6'10", 230 is what all these guys are listed at. Of course, it fluctuates based on how big the burrito they ate was on a Thursday morning. And then James Brown, who is 6'10", 240. And so the starting front court options for Carolina don't necessarily have the heft that Bidunga has. And it's close. It's not like it's DJ Burns weighing 87 more pounds than Jalen Washington or something like that Carolina dealt with a couple years ago. But still, Bidunga has some girth on Carolina's front court. And so this, to me, is a very interesting point of contention of how does Carolina's new look front court deal with the strength of a Flory Bidunga? Does this front court have answers? I'm really, really curious to see how VEESAAR, how Wilson deal with that size that Bidunga brings. And it's not just him. Bryson Tiller is 6'11", 240. Paul Mbia, who was initially committed to NC State, funny enough, and then wound up at Kansas, is 7 foot 245. So they've got other options behind Bidunga as well that also bring size to the table. I mean, the clear and obvious answer is that it's going to be HENRI VEESAAR's assignment. He's got some size. He's, I'm not sure on the wingspan on both of those guys. I haven't looked that up, but that's part of it. And so, man, I love this test for HENRI VEESAAR. I love this test for Caleb Wilson of like, how are you going to handle it? But here's the other thing. It's about Carolina having to deal with Flory Bidunga, but just as Coach Rob reminded us yesterday, Darren Peterson also has to deal with Carolina on the other side of the floor. And that's part of the equation too. And here's what I mean. When you look at who Kansas started in their first game, they played Green Bay. Yes, it was Flory Bidunga, but then they didn't have anyone starting that has the size to match up with Caleb Wilson. The rest of their starting lineup is Melvin Council Jr. at 6'4", another early enrollee freshman in Cole Rosario at 6'6", Darren Peterson at 6'6", and Trey White at 6'7". So it's interesting. Nobody's smaller than 6'4", but if Carolina, this is part of why I'm like, hey, I think you stick with Jarin Stevenson for at least this one more game in your starting lineup, because then Carolina has definite size advantage at both the 3 and the 4, with Stevenson towering over whoever's guarding him, as well as Caleb Wilson doing the other thing, the same on the other end. So there's that to reckon with. While I'm saying, yeah, we got to contend with Flory Bidunga, I'm saying, but let's not forget that Kansas has to deal with Caleb Wilson wanting to dunk everything that moves on the other end of the floor, right? So that's good. So when it gets to the specifics of defending Bidunga, do you single coverage? Do you double him? What do you do? I'm going single coverage for a couple reasons. Number one, it's early in the year. That you're trying stuff. You want to see what works. This is a test for HENRI VEESAAR. How can you do one-on-one in this moment? And actually, part of it is I haven't gone back to watch the Kansas-Arizona tape from last year. These guys might have guarded each other last year in the Big 12. But man, what an opportunity. So I'm going single coverage to test HENRI VEESAAR. I'm also going single coverage because I don't want to risk doubling and letting somebody else beat you. Yes, there is a world in which Darren Peterson and Flory Bidunga are the two guys you're most worried about offensively. And so maybe you double occasionally to kind of surprise them and to say, all right, somebody else, Melvin Council, Cole Rosario, whoever it is, you're going to have to do it because we're not going to let Flory or Darren do it. But again, because of the earliness of the season, you're wanting to see how tough is your Carolina team if you're Hubert Davis and the staff. And so that's why I'm sticking to single coverage. And then the key is when those other guys come in, Zayden High, James Brown, they've got to be able to do it, man. They've got to be able to come in and hold their own and not let Bidunga push them around. And that's where it's nice that High and Brown are the guys with a little more size from a weight standpoint than VEESAAR, Wilson, or Stevenson. So that's what we're going to be watching for. My expectation, though, again, HENRI VEESAAR, single coverage on Flory Bidunga, unless it's just untenable, and then you have a plan B. And you don't go into it without plan B. You've got plan A and B ready right now, and we'll see how it unfolds. All right, if you were Hubert Davis, my question for you, how would you defend Flory Bidunga? I'd love to hear your answers. Hop in the Locked On Tar Heels Discord, maybe the comments down below, and let me know. Now, one game in and through the exhibition games, and especially now with LUKA BOGAVAC eligible, Carolina looks like a complete basketball team. It's clear and obvious from last year. But as with any team, there are going to be question marks and there are going to be holes where Carolina has some weaknesses. The key for those is covering them up. What I want to look at next is what are those? How does Carolina cover it up? And oh, by the way, the ability to do so falls solely on the staff. We'll talk about that to wrap the show in just a second. Right after I tell you about FanDuel, y'all, the NBA is back, and there's no better place to get in on the action than FanDuel, the official sports betting partner of the NBA. Even if you miss the start of a game, maybe you want to ride the hot hand, whatever it is, FanDuel has live bets in real time for everything from who's going to score next to who's going to have a fourth quarter comeback. Plus, you could even combine all of those into a same-game parlay for a shot at even getting a bigger payout. That sounds really neat, right? I love this because it keeps every game exciting. What's going on? Let me check the action and get in on it. Carolina right now is plus 4,000 to win the national championship. They are fourth in the ACC odds right now to win the regular season there. 7.5-point favorite over Stanford in the football game on Saturday. Great stuff there. Go check out all those odds because right now, FanDuel is giving new customers $300 in bonus bets when your first $5 bet wins. So head on over to FanDuel.com to sign up and play your game with FanDuel, the official sports betting partner of the NBA. From the very moment that Carolina was unable to land anyone to help the front court in the transfer portal last year of the caliber of a HENRI VEESAAR, we knew that the roster was not constructed in a way that was going to be conducive to winning at a super elite level. This year, though, and especially now that LUKA BOGAVAC is cleared and ready to go, this team's different. They've got to go prove it. They've got to do it on the court. But even the early returns of playing an overmatched team show you difference. Like last would not have dominated Central Arkansas the way this team did. It's just a fact of the matter. One of my favorite things that I get to do as part of hosting this show is I love community. I love friends. I'm a big extrovert. And so I just love having people around. So one of the things I always want to be true of this show is that we're building something that goes beyond the show. We're building community together, whether that's in our Locked On Tar Heels Discord, our Locked On Tar Heels Insider crew, which, by the way, there's some changes upcoming to that that's going to give you opportunities to dive into the show in some new cool ways. More details on that coming soon. It's a brand new title, all sorts of stuff. It's going to be not title for the show, but for that kind of insiders crew. But one of the things I love to do with our insiders is, like, if they have a good take or they ask a good question, or sometimes I'll just say, hey, give me something you'd love to hear us talk about on the show. I always want to shout them out. One of those came from our insider, Michael Schade. Michael's a great dude. We've actually gotten to meet in person, really like him. But one of the things I had said was, how cool is it to you insiders that LUKA BOGAVAC is cleared and ready to go? And here was Shadrain's response back to me. He said, Isaac, it feels amazing. This is a fully loaded team now, and it's perfect timing getting him a game before Friday. That's a great point from Michael. Like, not just that he yesterday, Wednesday, but he was cleared in time to get a game under his belt for Carolina before the Kansas game. That's a great point. And then Shadrain went on to say, now it looks like a team that can compete with anyone in the country. And maybe you disagree, but I fully agree with that. There might be teams that have some more individual talent, whatever it is. But I think that this collection of talent and the sum of the parts is going to, there is no one in this country that I look at, even Houston, Purdue, anybody, that I'm like, Carolina can't compete with them. Will they win every game they play? Absolutely not, because college basketball teams don't do that. But there is not a game on Carolina's schedule where I look at and say they can't, there is 0% chance they win that game. For example, probably the lowest percent chance Carolina has to win a game on the schedule would be at Rupp and at Cameron Indoor Stadium. In fact, I'll look at that on torvik.com right now. Yes, Carolina at Torvik is 5.3 point underdogs, and at Duke, 8.4 underdogs. There is no other game on the schedule where they're greater than a 2-point underdog. Let me look at the same on KenPom's website. In fact, let me refresh it to make sure the data is most up to date. Yes, KenPom projects Carolina to lose by 11 at Kentucky. Yeah, nothing else by more than 3 points, and then by 9 at Duke. So those are the only two games you look at, and it's like Carolina's going to be a heavy underdog, and heavy still fewer than 10 points. But even in those games, Carolina can go win those basketball games. This team is that level of competitive, that level of talent, and that level better roster construction. All that said, though, it's true with any team, whether college basketball, NBA, or my daughter Poppy's rec team. They're going to have holes in their game. Poppy's team, a lot more holes than the Tar Heels. I mean, good grief. Again, Carolina has better shooting. They've got better size and height, and the defense should be literally elite in the nation. And when you look at those question marks, though, which you could think about those, right? Like we talked about the front court. Does Carolina have the bulk to rebound at the level they need to defend bigger, like bulky front court like they need to? The key is not to not have question marks or holes, because every team does. The key is, how do you mitigate those? How do you scheme offensively and defensively in ways that cover up for those shortcomings? And part of that is that is where coaching comes in, because it falls on Hubert Davis and Marcus Page and Sean May, Jeff Lee, but the whole staff, Coach Sully, everybody. I guess I named everybody but Coach Frederick. So there's Coach Frederick as well. They've got a game plan in those sorts of ways. The inability to do so would fall solely on their shoulders. But in the same breath, if they're able to game plan at a high level that hides their deficiencies, it puts Carolina in a great place to win. The good news is that this year, as compared to last year, in my view of this team, there are far fewer inefficiencies or deficiencies, I should say, that Carolina has to cover up. But the other side of that coin is it's, not just about hiding your deficiencies, it's about highlighting your strengths. So how do those work together, right? For example, Caleb Wilson, you want to get him the ball, maybe out of the 3-point line with a driving opportunity, but you want to get him a ball in space where he's got a chance to use his athleticism, attack, and dunk everything. You want to get action that's going to get LUKA BOGAVAC and Kyle Evans all sorts of great shots outside. You want to get Seth Trimble moving downhill. How do you highlight those strengths and mitigate, Seth Trimble settling for threes all the time? He can hit them, but attacking. Now, part of that is shot selection on the players. Absolutely. Like the execution of it is on the players. But the drawing up of all that is solely on the staff. Because it's one thing to recruit all these guys and get them all to campus. It's another thing to coach them up. Let me make this analogy for you. Running for public office is something I've never done and something I hope I never have to do because it sounds awful. But think about the process of it. You have to go about getting elected. The whole campaign trail, having a stump speech, having campaign managers who help you navigate all the places you got to go, all the babies you got to kiss, and all the hands you got to shake. That is one very unique skill set that not a lot of people have, is getting elected. But I don't know why we never stop and realize that it's a whole other thing to govern. It's one thing to get elected. It's another thing to govern. You know what I mean? Let's put that back to basketball. It's one thing to be a great recruiter. That doesn't mean you're necessarily awesome at X's and O's. I've seen coaches that are great at recruiting and maybe not great in-game guys. I've seen other coaches that maybe can't get the high-level recruits, but they do more with less because they're great at X's and O's. The absolute dudes are the guys who can do both, like Dean Smith, like Roy Williams. Those guys are phenomenal at what they did. I guess they don't technically do anymore. That's so sad to have to say. And so that is the key for Carolina. As Michael Shadron said, this team looks like a team that can compete with anyone in the country. And I truly, firmly, honestly believe that to be true. But the question is, as Carolina shows some deficiencies, whatever those end up being, how will the coaching staff hide them? As Carolina shows their strengths, how will the coaching staff find ways to accentuate those and mitigate the others? We're going to need to start watching for that, and we're probably going to start getting some ideas about it tomorrow night against Kansas. So keep your eyes on it. I love it. Great stuff. Thank you, Shadron, for that great thought and insight. You guys, make sure you catch the crossover with me and Locked On Jayhawks host Derek Johnson tomorrow on our regular show. On Friday, we will have our preview, more full in-depth preview of the Kansas game. We'll also get ready for Carolina hosting Stanford in football on Saturday. And then we will have our weekend whip around where we're looking at other Carolina athletics going on this weekend. You guys, thanks so much for being here on a Thursday. If you've not subscribed, why haven't you? It's simple to do. Just hit the subscribe button down there on YouTube or on your favorite audio platform. That helps make sure you never miss a second of Locked On Tar Heels, man. We love this community, and I want you to be a part of it, whether you already are and you want to become a deeper part or whether you're just finding us for the first time. Come on, man. Be part of what we got going on here. By the way, some of the ways to do that, join the Locked On Tar Heels Discord channel with hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of other Tar Heels fans. That link's in the show notes. Free to join. Come on in and join the chats. If you want to go deeper with the show, chat with me one-on-one, free access to all of my other stuff, other perks as well. That link is in the show notes as well. A great way to help support the work we're doing here at Locked On Tar Heels. It's always a great day to be a Tar Heel. Can't wait to talk to you again tomorrow. But until then, peace.